Well, Graeme, first of all, tell us about the experience last week. It was a new experience for a lot of the boys playing National 1 rugby,
Yeah.
and my goodness, a baptism of a fire because you were up against last year's Super 6 champions. So how did it go? I mean, we know it's 46-6, but
Yeah.
you were very competitive right up to sort of the second part of the second half.
Yeah, I mean, well, as you say, we turned around at half time, 15-6 down. So, I mean, we were very much in the game at that point, and we tried to focus on the performance. We knew it was going to be hard. I mean, absolutely. I mean, 11 of their starting team were part of the Stirling Wolves team from last season. So, yeah, you're playing against a quality side. I would say we probably defended a hell of a lot more than we did attack-wise. So, but again, in that respect, we did pretty well. I felt, looking, reviewing the video, they were big physical. If you're playing and training at the higher level, that's what you come up against, and that's what we did. But we're not disheartened, not at all.
Because let's put it into perspective, as I say, Super 6 champions last year. You were in National 2 last year. That's 3 divisions.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. So it's a fair old gulf, isn't it? When you put it like that. But those guys were well conditioned, and well skilled. When they took opportunities, they took them and converted them, and that's the difference really at that level. Individually, I thought, they were probably better individuals, but speaking to certainly one of their coaches after the game, he actually felt we were a better unit, we were a better team. We actually played better as a team. Which is good to hear and good to see as well.
And what was the reaction in the dressing room afterwards? Was it obviously a lot of pride there because you'd gone head to head with the Super 6 champions, and obviously get the hardest one effectively out of the way early on?
I think so. I mean, the guys are disappointed. Obviously, nobody's happy about losing a game. That's that's just sport, isn't it? You don't go out to lose a game. We went out there to try and win the game. So yes, you're disappointed, but we tried to keep it as positive as we could and say, we defended pretty well. We just need to improve, and hopefully we'll get more chances in attack-wise, as we play other teams, throughout the league.
Because it's a big season in the Premiership, a big season in National 1 as well, because in both divisions, 3 go down. And in your case, there's only 10 teams there.
Yeah, and that's one of the points I think that I've spoken to the guy, or certainly to people, speaking about, to turn over 40% of a league in one season is a pretty big chunk, and whether that could have been done slightly differently, but that's what we've got, and we've just got to get on with it and just kind of try our best to make sure that we are still in that division. Hey, we never know, we might be in the one above, but going by Saturday's performance, I think we know which team's probably most likely to be in that one going above, but we want to be a National 1 side.
It doesn't get too much easier, of course, because Glasgow Accies at home at the Gites next. They beat Dundee, I think it was, by about 50 odd points. They're no mugs, as you know. You've experienced Glasgow Accies before, but you've got them at the Gites. It'll be a different experience for them as well.
It will, and I think we are confident at home that we can make that place very difficult for every side that comes there, and that's one of our targets, is to make sure that we are winning our home games. Certainly all of them. Stirling might be a one that everybody kind of writes off a wee bit based on where they are, but we believe that we can win all our other home games there. And the last time we played Glasgow Accies, we beat them twice in the league, and that was the league the season they got promoted. There might be some player turnover, but I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of players in there still the same. So there's nothing to fear. And I think we're better than that now.
You do feel that the setup at the moment, there's lots of potential there for improvement and raising the standard?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, our model, as you know, and we've spoken about before, is about producing young players through our system and then promoting them through the club. And if they go on to bigger and better things, that's great as well. So that's what we're trying to do. Is we're part of the pyramid. We're not at the top of the pyramid, so we're somewhere down, kind of near the topper echelons of the pyramid at the moment. So we hope to continue to keep our players, the best players, but if they feel as though they need to go on, for example, Ross Wolfenden from last season, experience with us, and then he gets his academy contract on the back of that, from the performances that he's done there, and also, with the Scotland setup. So yeah, we believe we've got a good model, and that's sustainable for us.
And we must mention Paddy Harrison as well, of course, who's done wonderful things via Peebles and then moving up the ranks as well. Yeah. And yes, he's not going to be playing for Peebles anytime soon. He might end his career there, I'm sure he will. But the pathway is obviously working at Peebles.
I think so, and it's great, absolutely fantastic day for the Harrison family. When Paddy got his first cap, and it's great. And Jack and Robert play obviously still with us, and it's great to see them coming through as well, And Jack is obviously the captain of Peebles this year, so there's a strong connection there, a strong Harrison connection, and long may that continue,
Peebles are used to playing higher opposition because in the Border League you've taken on Hawick and Melrose and Selkirk and these other teams as well, which must be a good thing because when you come to meet these National 1 clubs, there is obviously a slight dip in standard there, and the boys are already used to playing at that level. Yeah,
I think you're right. You're absolutely right there, Stuart. They talk about training beyond what you play. A lot of times, and certainly, you take your players to beyond where they're going to be in games. So you train at a higher intensity for certain times to then make it easier in games. So for us, it was effectively Border League games were training beyond where we were. Last season they were all at least one, if not two leagues beyond. Now we have some that are going to be double headers and some that are going to be obviously above us as well. So that's been great over the last couple of years, I think, for this particular group of players to have that experience and actually not be overawed by the fact that you're going to go in and play these players, these teams, and give a good account of yourself.
And not just overawed, you ran Melrose really close recently, and it was teeming with rain, and there was only, I think you were in the lead for most of the game, and it went down to the wire, and of course you've beaten Hawick at Mansfield Park, famously under Jerry McGuinness over there as well. And, so, I mean, it's not as if you're making up the numbers.
No, I don't feel we are, and I think if you asked around in the Borders, I think people enjoy the fact that we're there and we're adding something to the party. We're bringing maybe a slightly different complexion on it. We maybe haven't got quite the history of a Hawick or a Gala or a Melrose, and littered with trophies behind them, but we'll still give competitive account of ourselves in every one of those games.
So what about ins and outs this season then? I mean, there's been a lot of cloak and dagger, of course, mainly in the Premiership and certainly on the West Coast, let's say. That's now revealed, and that was the exciting thing. It was kind of the first day of the season, everyone has to show their hand. Yeah. So what about Peebles, ins and outs?
Pretty boring, to be honest, sure. It's pretty much same old for us in terms of we're not going out actively recruiting people from here, there and everywhere. We'll open our arms to anybody that wants to come and play with us. We have had one guy come down to us from Curry, Ewan Murray. So he's come to hopefully get and will get. Well, he played on Saturday. He came off the bench to make his competitive debut on Saturday. To play at that higher level. He was in the sort of first 15 squad, but hadn't quite cemented a place in there, so he's looking to come and get that first 15 experience. And pretty much the rest are all graduates of the Colts, the very good Colts side, I must hasten to add, from last season, which basically cleaned up everything in the Borders. So we're happy with that. We're happy that we have a cohesive unit, that guys are playing with each other for years. So there's not a lot of introductions needed, even on a social front. Everybody knows each other, and I feel that's a massive positive for us in terms of that. In terms of guys finishing, well, we thought Neil Hogarth had hung up his boots.
He'll never
However, he's turned out for bigger last weekend.
Wow.
So that was a bit of a shock, I think, to a few guys, but that's Neil's decision, and he's gone up there and he's playing in there. But he's really the only one that's kind of finished. There's and nobody else has really kind of said that's him done. So we've retained. I think a lot of it was about retention and making sure. Ross, as I mentioned earlier on, he's gone on to obviously get his academy contract. So, and he's been aligned to Musselburgh. So, unfortunately, we missed out on that, keeping him for us. But good luck to Ross.
And of course, the development of the youngsters coming through the Colts and then coming into big boys rugby, if you like. Yeah. It's not an easy transition. Some make it easier for themselves than others. But from a club's perspective, how do you actually manage that?
Yeah, so a couple of ways. one of the big things that we did last year, we introduced just a bit more sort of joint training with the Colts, just in terms of doing team runs together, just kind of running around the pitch together. Not obviously no contact or anything like that, but just seeing how the other team operates, getting to know the players, so therefore they are able to kind of make that step up. And then if there's players identified, then pushing them through. So for example, this season we've had a couple of players, Louis White and Rory McAfee, who have done their testing, so they're able to play adult rugby.
And what does that involve?
So that is effectively they do an online course, the Rugby Right course, and then they're assessed on their tackle technique, which is videoed, and then there's a form to fill out, an application form, which they have to put on the reasons why they feel as though they need to play senior rugby or be available to play senior rugby, and that's also put forward, added to by the coaches as well in terms of the reasons behind that. So it could be, they're identified players are maybe in the Scotland under 18 what's training squad, for example. So in order to push them onto that sort of further level, the physicality of senior rugby would equate to, say, international under 18 rugby. So therefore it gives them the opportunity to bring these players up to the standard that would help nationally as well as locally in terms of the club. So they do that, and then it's sent off to Murrayfield, and then we get the word whether or not they're cleared or not. So thankfully those two guys were. And that's a process that we do throughout the season. If there's somebody then comes up later on in the season that maybe benefit from that, maybe post-Christmas, depending on their age, when their birthdays are and such like, so we'll look at that. So it's constant dialogue between the director of rugby, Colin Thompson, myself as head of the senior squads, and Neil Wolfenden, who's the head of the Colts coaching group as well. So we always talk about who's identified and who's potential for this sort of thing.
And of course, physically as well, they have to develop, and,
yes.
and that's something they get help with.
Yeah, so we have our own strength and conditioning coach, Callum Welsh, who works with the seniors and under 18s and under 16s as well. So he's working with them. But obviously, guys, if they're involved in the academy side of things as well, they're getting support through the academy strength and conditioning coaches as well. So there's a fair bit of kind of time and effort goes in by the players, and also the structures behind that.
Now, there's obviously a balance to be had, isn't there? When you were a National 2 club, I'm sure other clubs were sniffing around, looking at all the players and saying, we can offer a higher level of rugby because, you're good enough to play at that level. Now that you're National 1, hopefully you'll be able to retain more of your own players as well. And so obviously staying in National 1 is pretty much a priority.
Yes. You're bang on there, Stuart. That's exactly what it is. That was the goal from last season, was to get us into this league, so therefore the players wouldn't be drained away. And now it's, like you say, it's about the retention of those quality players. So we will at least have some benefit of bringing them through the system. Now, if guys are identified and they're going to go on to academy contracts or whatever, they're probably going to move on fairly quickly. However, it's about all the other players that maybe would want to go to Premiership, maybe would want to go to National 1 if we weren't there as well. So, we want to keep as many of our boys that we've produced in our team, so therefore we can be successful as well.
And fantastic as well to have the likes of Matty Carrier still playing, giving so much advice to the youngsters. Donald Anderson as well. Yeah,
the old stalwarts are still there, and they both done pretty well on Saturday to manage that game. Matty's part of both of them are part of the coaching group now as well, so they're kind of got input in coaching side of things as well. So both sides of the kind of table, if you like, in terms of that, which is key for me as well in terms of developing their futures, and that's part of the kind of process as well. As you're looking for these players that have got good communication skills, good understanding of the game, and able to kind of connect with the players that they can then put that back into the next generation. And that's what they're both doing, both on and off the field, if you like, both coaching and playing.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to coming to see I think it's Peebles Jed that we're going to be filming, and also the Gala Peebles match, I think, later on in the season. But it's fantastic as well because last year you had the one derby against Berwick, if you can call Berwick Peebles a derby, where you're both board as teams in the Board League. Now, of course, you've got Jed Forrester coming down, and Gala, who were still there last year.
Yeah, and you add into that bigger as well,
Yes,
so
of course,
we've got some pretty close-knit ties with all of those clubs in terms of locality and the history behind that as well. So these are good. They're good for the players, to play in these sort of games. They're good for the supporters, and they're good for the clubs because they generate interest and money as well for the treasurers. So the busy days at the club, and that's what you play and coach for, is these type of days. And that's, I think we do have to kind of look to more of those and get more of those types of fixtures. So the more border clubs that are close within the league structure, the better.
And you mentioned the treasurer as well, and they're always happy if they've got a full clubhouse. And of course the support, because of, we all know the 10 million debt, and probably next year as well, according to Rob Muffet. There's not a lot of money kicking around from above to subsidise clubs. So these events are so important.
Of course they are, and it takes money to run a rugby club, and it takes a lot of money to run a rugby club, and it takes even more money to run a rugby club at the level that we're operating at as well. You've got travel, if you've got sometimes success brings its own problems. I mean, we have a very strong and vibrant youth section. None of those guys can drive, so therefore they have to be bussed everywhere. So that's one of the biggest costs that a rugby club will be transport, because of the transport costs. So bussing all these youth teams around the country costs a lot of money, and the same with your senior teams as well. So yeah, it is a financial concern, for a lot of clubs. I know that a lot of clubs maybe won't declare it openly, but they are struggling. Energy costs, all these things all add in, and it's a difficult one to balance the books, and our treasurer has done pretty well to do that over the last few years, and he's got us to a position where we're at least in a good position.
It's not going to be easier anytime soon, to be honest, on the financial front as well. So, and there's a lot of talk as well about, and there has been, about regional rugby, and maybe having 2 top-tier national rugby, and then below that going to regional. Can you see that happening purely because of the financial reasons?
Possibly. I mean, it would take a big shift in a lot of clubs to kind of get behind that. I think just with the voting system of how we're governed, you've seen all the arguments that were put forward for the restructuring after Super 6 finishing, and that was just really dealing with one kind of aspect of it. Personally, I think we've not got enough consistent quality at the top end to have 5 national leagues. I think probably you're looking at 2 or 3, like you say, is probably enough to kind of contain that quality, and then people aspiring to get into there, and that's what it's about. It's just making it, I mean, it's still a pyramid structure from there, but you're just, like you say, you're reducing some costs, you're making it more accessible to probably more people. People have different lifestyles, they can't go away to Highland or Dundee or Aberdeen and places like that every other weekend, and it does place a lot of pressure on people, and their work commitments, their family commitments. It does come in, it factors into your selection process as a coach, big style.